From Boston via Skype is Andy Herrmann. He is the former president of the American Society of Civil Engineers. Andy, you just heard what Jim was saying. As far as countries go, the United States ranked 24th in terms of infrastructure. It sounds like long overdue to spend some money there. What are your thoughts?
Well, if you look at what other countries are spending, you have Europe with about 5% of its GDP, China 9% of its GDP, America maybe 2, maybe 3%. We're underspending them.
Yes. Well, let me throw a couple of quotes out there, and I want to get your thoughts on them. Two that jumped out at me today, and I just want you to respond to them. The former governor of Pennsylvania, Ed Rendell, said that this just points out how terrible the nation's infrastructure is. If you went to Asia, Europe, this is sort of the point you were just making, and you saw the high-speed trains, they're all on a dedicated line. They're all straight as an arrow. It's just embarrassing what we do with our infrastructure. Do you think there's truth in what he's saying?
Oh, definitely. If you look at our Northeast corridor, there's only a straight patch in New Jersey. We start getting into following the coastline in Connecticut and Massachusetts. They can't really get to any real high speed.
And a former U.S. Transportation Secretary said this: America is at a crisis when it comes to infrastructure. Is it really that bad? And what's it going to take to change things, do you think?
Well, it is that bad. The American Society of Civil Engineers came out with their recent report card in 2013, and 16 categories of infrastructure, the GPA average was D+. That's out of 16 categories, 11 Ds, 4 Cs, and just 1 B.
Oh, that's pretty amazing. And then you hear in Washington, Josh Earnest just saying this, House of Representatives, the House Appropriations Committee, voting to dramatically actually cut Amtrak's budget just hours after this crash. One New York lawmaker said starving rail of funding will not enable safer train travel. How do you think the cuts can be reversed? Is it a matter of just the citizens of the country kind of chiming in?
Well, I think we have to get it from the public to our politicians, to our representatives, to let them know. It's funny because Congress passed the Rail Safety Act in 2008, which would put that positive train control on both the locomotives and the tracks. From what I've heard, it was on the locomotive, but not on the track at that section. This could have prevented the accident.
One of the U.S. senators, Senator Carper, was actually on this train, got off. This is a train that's used quite a bit by executives, lawmakers. I've been on it myself quite a bit. It's one of the corridors in the United States that's actually pretty active. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the Northeast Corridor is perfect for high-speed rail. From the standpoint, it's densely populated. You have Washington, New York, and Boston. It's a great place to use mass transit. But right now, we don't have dedicated lines. We don't have straight shots, so we can't get the speeds that we need to make high-speed rail really profitable.
How long would it take to turn things around, and how much money would need to be spent?
Well, it's interesting because Amtrak is looking ahead to 2040. And they're seeing a quadrupling of their passengers. They're looking at 43 million passengers by 2040. They look to see that they and the commuter rails that use the Northeast Corridor should invest about $10 billion over 15 years to get track safety and also to increase capacity for all that additional ridership.